that checkered flag song goes, it's the greatest race in the world.
Gentlemen, start your engine.
And now stay tuned for the greatest spectacle in racing. Each year in the month of May, Speedway owner Tony Holman gives the command to start your engines to the gentlemen who race. They've made their pilgrimage to Indianapolis in search of speed, fame, and glory. 33 proud men will try, but only one will win. Most racing drivers say that their lifetime ambition will be fulfilled if only they might cross the finish line first at Indianapolis. Many have done so before my very eyes. This is Sid Collins, speaking to you from the Master Control Tower at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, as I've done for more than 25 years. Each year, we've had the honor of broadcasting around the world to over 100 million people. My fine crew and I have covered the greatest spectacle in racing from before the green flag is waved to after the checkered flag has fallen, to signal another winner will enter that very exclusive piece of Indiana real estate known as Victory Lane. But the track and the race were there long before our entry on the scene. Its history stretched all the way back to the start of this century. The enterprising city of Indianapolis played a major part in the early history of the automobile and was listed as the nation's second largest manufacturer of passenger cars. In Indiana, 250 different makes were produced, with 64 of these being assembled in the Indianapolis area alone. An energetic businessman named Carl Fisher owned the very first car in Indianapolis before the turn of the century. He hit upon the idea of building a huge oval-shaped track 6 miles from downtown to be utilized as a proving ground. He reasoned that firms from all over the nation could test their products in racing, and admission charges would make the track a paying proposition. The sprawling Presley farm, used for growing corn in the Hoosier heartland, was bought by Fisher and several associates in early 1909, and a 2.5 mile racetrack, surfaced with crushed rock and tar, took shape by midsummer. Balloon and motorcycle races preceded an accident-marred 3-day racing meet in August, after which time the track was shut down. 3,200,000 bricks were laid by December 1909 to make it smoother and safer. Short races were run through 1910, but the crowds began to dwindle. Fisher and his partners came up with a plan to stage one major event on Memorial Day, May 30, 1911. The distance of 500 miles was determined, since the race would take about 7 hours, and there would still be time for spectators to get to Indianapolis and back home again before dark. 75,000 fans turned out for the dawn to dusk extravaganza. Ray Haroon, design engineer for the Marmon Passenger Car Company, won that first race at a speed of almost 75 miles an hour. Haroon talked with us many years later in front of the Starting Tower Pagoda, and he reminisced about his history-making day.
Mr. Haroon, how long was the race in which you won in 1911?
Well, it was about 6 hours and some odd minutes.
These days we can pretty well cross the country and back in that time, can't we?
That's right.
How does the track look to you since the old days when you first raced here?
Well, it looks a lot better. When I first raced here, it was brick and wasn't too smooth.
What kind of a car did you have, sir?
That was a Marmon.
And have you noticed many improvements these days?
Oh, yes. They only weigh about half as much and about 4 times as much horsepower.
In 1912, another local firm won, when a national, driven by a hometown boy, Joe Dawson, won the race at the expense of the great Ralph De Palma. De Palma led all but the first 2 laps and the final 2, then tried to push his broken Mercedes to victory, but failed. 3 years later, in 1915, he won the race. But he would always remember 1912, when he lost.
Hard to forget the one I did not finish in 1912 because everyone likes to talk about it.
That's right.
Everyone reads about it. There have been more lines written about the race that I did not win than there did on the one that I did win in 1915. Of course, they call it hard luck. Well, I often say that I don't think it was hard luck. It's just breaks of the game.
Great European drivers like Jules Gou, René Thomas, and Dario Resta won pre-war races. But when racing resumed after World War I, names like Howdy Wilcox, Gaston Chevrolet, Tommy Milton, Joe Boyer, and Jimmy Murphy brought car names such as Frontenac, Miller, and Duesenberg to the public's attention. The speeds were fantastic. On a track designed for lap speeds of 75 to 80 miles an hour, Ralph De Palma's nephew, Peter DePaulo, won the race in 1925 with an average speed of over 101 miles per hour. Pete was ecstatic when we asked him about that day, which was to live in his heart forever.
All through the race, I had the confidence that I was going to win. Matter of fact, I'd sing. I'd go down the backstretch singing, oh, boy, I'm lucky, I'll say I'm lucky. Get over, buddy, let me by. I didn't say nice words all the time, but it was very, very interesting, and they all thought I was going too fast. And the weather was terribly hot. It was 96 temperature. So you can imagine what the track temperature must have been. They said he'll never make it, he'll never hold it, but as a matter of fact, after the first 25 laps, I could look back the entire length of the home stretch and nobody in sight. And that's why I tell them I enjoyed my most pleasant trip. Every time I cross a line, all alone, $100, $100, $100. It was a marvelous feeling.
Another man destined for speedway immortality was a relief driver in 1911. He had his career cut short, but he left for Europe in World War I to join the U.S. Air Corps in France. He came home as America's leading air ace, never to drive a race car again. When Carl Fisher initiated his project to develop the swamplands of Miami into the resort area to become Miami Beach, Florida, the Speedway presidency passed to James Allison. Allison was an aircraft engine magnate, and in 1927, he and the air ace Captain Eddie Rickenbacker got together in Indianapolis.
Well, very frankly, I came down to buy the Allison Engineering Company from Jim Allison. And he said, no, I don't want to sell it. I live in Florida in the winter, and I want someplace to put my feet in the summer and watch the wheels go around. But he said, why don't you buy the Speedway? And that was the way it started. I said I hadn't thought of it, so I made a check of it very carefully and had some financial interests in Detroit who said, if you find something that's worthwhile, why, let us know. Well, it was quite evident to me that Carl Fisher was through with it, and Jim Allison was the only one left that had anything to do with it, and that he was through, and that if someone didn't buy it and perpetuate it, why, you wouldn't have a Speedway. And if I hadn't have bought it, it would have been subdivided, and automatically Indiana and Indianapolis would have lost the one big thing they've got that's known around the world.
The Indianapolis 500 had become an American institution. Frank Lockhart, Louis Meyer, Billy Arnold, Wild Bill Cummings, Floyd Roberts, Wilbur Shaw, Rex Mays, Ted Horn, Ralph Hepburn, Fred Frame, Maury Rose, and many, many more etched their names into auto racing lore. The speeds kept climbing. By 1941, we were engaged in a Second World War, and auto racing stopped. The Indianapolis Speedway stood vacant and abandoned, and when the war ended, the stands and the track surface were in ramshackle and decrepit condition. Eddie Rickenbacker was deeply involved as Eastern Airlines president, and he wanted to sell the Speedway. The three-time winner Wilbur Shaw fought to save the facility. He induced a Terre Haute industrialist and sportsman, Anton Holman Jr., to purchase the track in November of 1945. Tony Holman told us of his longtime love for the racetrack.
First of all, I'm a native Hoosier, and in my early years, before I first attended the 500-mile race, why, I had the opportunity of sitting on the curb over in Terre Haute and watching the old automobiles on their way to Indianapolis to attend the race. And it wasn't until about 1914 until my father brought me along and let me see my first race here at Indianapolis.
In 1946, the first Indianapolis 500 was run under the auspices of Tony Holman and Wilbur Shaw. And George Robeson became the first post-war winner at an average speed of 114 miles per hour. In 1947, Maury Rose drove the Blue Crown Special to his second Indy victory. His teammate, Bill Holland, led most of the race until a confusing easy sign message on the pit board caused him to slow down and unknowingly relinquish his lead to Rose. Holland came in second. In 1948, the finish was the same. Rose first, Bill Holland second. But 1949 was to be Holland's year. From my post on the #1 turn, the cars roared past me on the pace lap.
Here they come around the southwest turn. 32 times before this pace car has left the field around the end of the southwest turn into the south straightaway as the drivers get the feel of their cars. On some, Lady Luck was shining just as the sun is shining this very moment. The rainbow color mingled with the asphalt of the 660-foot south straightaway directly in front of us. Today there are seasoned veterans in these cars, as well as some youngsters flying their wings for the first time. Here comes the entire pace lap, the 32 cars in front of us. There goes the main automobile pace car. In just a few moments, they start the 200 trips around this magnificent speedway course. George Lynch in 26 to Jefferson Goggles, Jack McGrath, Britton Keith as they pass us here. Now the spectators in the back stretch are going to get their first glimpse of the splendorous procession. So for a verbal view of the back stretch, back to the pagoda.
The race began with top contenders Duke Neyland and Rex Mays dueling for the lead in two of the fabulous supercharged Novi cars, which have become great favorites. Neyland quickly pulled away from Mays and built up a terrific lead by the end of 23 laps, to have his efforts thwarted by an accident. Jim Shelton described Neyland's plight.
This treacherous northeast turn has claimed another car, Duke Neyland. The powerful Novi number 54, after setting a blazing speed, lost a wheel coming into the northeast turn. The car skidded immediately, smacked the wall sideways, and burst into flames. It bounded off into another spin, but it came back striking the wall head-on this time. Now at this point, Duke looked as if he loosened his safety belt and either jumped or was thrown from the racer. The car continued pancaking the wall and finally came to rest flush against the outside wall. Now at this time, fuel leaking from the wrecked car spread over the entire track, making it necessary for cars rounding the curve to cut at least 10 feet onto the sod on the inside of the track. They had to there to keep from going through that wall of flame. Some cars, however, had to go through the wall of flame caused by the leaking fuel. No other way around, as too many cars were loose on the inside turf. No cars caught on fire, however. Very fortunate. Duke, meanwhile, scrambled to his feet and was picked up by an ambulance. The fire is out now, but the car, a complete wreck, remains flattened against the wall.
And later in Victory Lane, Hollywood movie star Linda Darnell was on hand to kiss the tenacious winner, Bill Holland. In 1950, 21 drivers took their rookie tests, including the great Bill Vukovich and another eventual winner, Bob Schweikert. The little dynamo, 5-foot 4-inch cigar-smoking Walt Faulkner, made history by establishing a pole speed of 134.343 miles per hour in a car owned by J.C. Agajanian, a man who was to become one of the most flamboyant race car owners over the next 25 years. We talked with Walt.
Walt, you seem to have some kind of a routine here that's setting the pace here at the Speedway this year, and that's holding that rubber ball in your right hand. Will you tell us why you do that?
Well, it's just an exercise for the hands and the wrists and the fingers. Just keep them sharp all the time.
You keep on squeezing all the time.
That's right.
And since you brought that small rubber ball about the size of a ping pong ball to the track, the other drivers have been taking up the same idea.
Well, I've seen quite a few of them floating around.
Well, you can join the rubber ball business then, after
I
you
think
get
I
out of
will.
racing. How about your superstition about peanuts, Walt?
Well, that dates back a long time ago. I'm taking a dim view of them, period.
You don't like peanuts around a race car?
Not at all.
Do you mind the color green? That's another race driver's superstition.
Well, I don't like it.
And how about women in the pits? I don't
Well,
like them around the car either.
no.
There was a rumor of a cracked block in the car of 1949 AAA driving champion Johnny Parsons on the morning of the 1950 race. But it was Parsons who pulled into Victory Lane after rain fell at 345 miles. It was the first time since 1926 that the race had been red flagged and stopped because of rain. That year, film stars Clark Gable and Barbara Stanwyck were on hand to make the movie To Please a Lady. We were all in Victory Lane. I was there for the first time. It was a mad dash down the steps of the old pagoda through the rain-soaked crowds. As I leaned over the white-hot exhaust pipe of Parsons' car, I singed my trousers. The crowd was pushing me closer against the car. This may explain the very brief interview with Johnny Parsons.
Another great big kiss coming in here from Barbara Stanwyck. She's really hanging on. It's the fourth one she's given now. Johnny, just have another word, coast to coast on neutral microphone now.
Well, I'm awfully glad that we won the race.